What I'm about to tell you has never been made public. For 30 years, I worked inside America's intelligence fabric, long enough to know how it is supposed to keep us safe, and long enough to know how fragile that promise can be. In my final case, I uncovered a pattern so corrosive it still wakes me in the night. This is the story of the Federal Department of Intelligence, the FDI, its mission, its methods, and how that mission was subverted from within. The FDI operates from a fortified headquarters in Washington state, a complex of secured perimeters and classified corridors. Its mandate sounds simple: protect United States citizens across multiple states by coordinating intelligence, investigations, and interventions. In practice, that mission depends on a network of specialized departments, an information and communications technology division that manages secure systems, an elite operator program of analysts who coordinate field assets, field agents who work in neighborhoods and on the ground, and supervisors who manage both operations and people. What set the FDI apart was the operator model: skilled analysts sitting at consoles processing raw data, predicting movement, and guiding field agents through delicate operations. Operators are the brains that synchronize field action with intelligence, turning cold leads into arrests or rescues. Supervisors like Level 8 personnel oversee these operators, balancing strategy, ethics, and bureaucratic demands. In public, the agency is a quiet machinery of protection. Behind closed doors, we are only human, capable of brilliance and of mistakes. This account draws on classified files, recovered surveillance, testimony from those who survived, and the fragmentary records left by those who did not. It will show how the FDI's greatest strength, interconnected intelligence, was turned into a weapon against the very citizens it was meant to defend. It will also show what happened to the people who tried to stop it: field agents, operators, supervisors. Their names matter. Their sacrifices matter. This is their story. At the center of the unfolding betrayal was Level 8 supervisor Xavier Skinner. In the agency, he was known as a strategist's strategist, a man who treated ethics like a discipline and rare quiet competence like a virtue. He supervised the operator program with a steady hand, overseeing analysts such as Evan Tanner with an unforced combination of confidence and care. Skinner's office was Spartan but orderly, a conference table crowded with maps and annotated case packets, an old coffee mug with a hairline crack he never replaced, and a corkboard full of links that read like a puzzle. He had a habit of walking the table with a pen tucked behind his ear, pausing to ask a single clarifying question that would cut through noise and reveal the next step. Colleagues described him as incorruptible, not because he was inflexible, but because he believed rules were safeguards, not inconveniences. His mentorship of operator Evan Tanner illustrated his leadership. Skinner trusted Tanner's analytical instincts while insisting on procedural rigor. He pushed Tanner to document decisions, to consider collateral consequences, and to think 2 moves ahead. In one remembered briefing, Skinner insisted they rerun a timeline because of a single inconsistent timestamp. That attention to small inconsistencies would later prove vital. Skinner cared about personnel as much as mission success. He checked in on junior operators, made sure field agents received debriefs, and argued for investigators who needed time and resources. That attention made him a target. His rigor threatened those who relied on blurred lines and hidden channels. Barely anyone imagined that a man who lived in transparency would be struck down for it. But steadfastness can make an enemy out of anyone who profits from secrecy. The first visible fracture in the larger pattern appeared in 2 homicides investigated by field agent Alexandria Pendle. The scene that started it all was the Sanctuary, a dimly lit bar that catered to late-shift workers and local academics. Dr. Henry Jenkins, a respectable research scientist, was found dead at about 2 a.m. The room smelled of spilled beer and burnt tobacco. The body was moved enough to suggest a struggle, yet there were no obvious signs of robbery. At first glance, it read like a bar fight gone deadly. Pendle worked methodically. She cataloged witness statements, patrons slurred, frightened, some refusing to speak, and pressed the failed CCTV as a critical missing element. The Sanctuary's cameras had recorded a gap that night. The system log showed a dropout. Jenkins, on paper, had no enemies, no debt, no notable turmoil. career largely defined by late nights at the lab and a small circle of colleagues. He was, by all accounts, an unlikely target for lethal violence. 2 days later, Ray Wells turned up dead in a downtown parking garage. Wells was the sort of man whose name circulated in police bulletins. Petty crimes, brawls, a past laced with grudges. He was not a figure you would expect to find linked to a mild-mannered scientist. But forensic results changed the narrative. Trace evidence and forensics connected Wells to Jenkins. Fibers, positioning of wounds, and a fragment of DNA consistent with a scuffle at the sanctuary. The forensics lab reported that Wells had killed Dr. Jenkins. That revelation deepened the mystery rather than resolving it. If Wells killed Jenkins, someone killed Wells. The question shifted from motive to coverage. Who stood to benefit from both murders and from burying the critical moments on camera? Pendle's instincts told her there was more than coincidence at work. Her investigation was about to collide with an intelligence network that, at its worst, could mask both killer and motive. The parking garage where Wells died had full coverage. Cameras across lanes, overhead fixtures, timestamps synchronized to city time. Yet when Pendle requested the footage, 5 critical minutes were missing, the moment Wells was killed. The deletion was surgical, not a random dropout. File fragments, corrupted headers. That kind of manipulation suggested deliberate erasure. Operator Evan Tanner entered the picture as the bridge between on-the-ground work and digital leads. From his console in headquarters, he traced communications and compiled data for Pendle. He provided Alexandria with an address in Boontown and urged her to check it the night after Wells was killed. It was an odd order. The address wasn't on any active file and didn't fit the usual leads, which raised hard questions in Pendle's mind. Why send an agent into a rural town the night after a linked homicide? Tanner's tone over the secure line was steady, insistently convinced they needed to move fast. The missing footage would not stay missing. A hacker known only as Hall contacted Tanner with a recovered copy. Hall's restoration filled the gap and showed a killer who moved with training and intent. The camera revealed a person who approached Wells with a combatant's efficiency and left without hesitation. The way the killer managed their presence on camera hinted at knowledge of surveillance systems, an awareness of blind spots, and perhaps an unnerving confidence that even erased minutes could be made to vanish. Pendle watched the frames and felt, for the first time, the shape of something larger. This was not a single crime. It was a controlled operation. While Pendle followed leads in the city, Agent Barry Walker was in Nevada's dry field investigating a different mystery. Connie Moore had disappeared and then returned with a story that fit no tidy profile. Moore claimed time away she could not explicitly place, and she provided photographs she said were taken during her absence. Walker, a deliberate investigator with an eye for technical detail, verified metadata and noticed one oddity. A photograph's timestamp didn't match the camera's internal clock or the date Moore insisted she had taken it. Tanner, coordinating across cases, directed Walker toward the geographic coordinates embedded in Moore's photo. The site was a remote stretch of desert marked by heat scrub and low hills, a place where few people passed. At first glance, it was barren, the kind of American landscape that erases footprints quickly. But Walker, methodical and patient, noticed an odd arrangement. Field stones set in an ordered pattern, not natural scatter. Protocol required careful processing. Photograph the stones, grid the area, search under each marker. Beneath those stones, Walker found a series of graves. What was at first an isolated missing person report began to look like evidence of something systematic and far older than any single disappearance. The burials were not recent, hastily dug graves. In the desert's arid climate, remains were preserved in ways that allowed forensic teams to determine approximate timeframes. Walker cataloged bodies under roughly 100 markers. Each marker had been placed with a grim consistency. Spacing and orientation suggested an organized effort. When Walker cross-checked FDI missing persons reports and state records, he began to match names to remains. The list grew. dozens of matches, then scores. Eventually, investigators accounted for approximately 122 missing or dead linked to the site. The implications were enormous. This was not a serial killer working alone. The scale and methods suggested logistics, resources, and time. There had to be infrastructure, transport, secure places to hold victims, and people who could move without inquiry. Someone had been concealing death on a systemic level, and the desert burial ground was both archive and signal. Connie Moore's partial memories shed light on how victims were controlled. Substances used to erase timelines, cells of captivity, and a process of release that sometimes allowed survivors to return with patched memories. Moore's recollection of other prisoners, of executions, and of seeing faces of men who managed lists of names convinced Walker that this operation targeted people across state lines. The desert graves were also a message, a counting of bodies that demonstrated capability, a warning that the orchestrator could dispose of people with impunity. Confirming identities was painstaking: dental records, DNA cross-referencing, and interviews with families. Each confirmation shifted the investigation from a local anomaly to a national emergency. As the count climbed toward 122, the FDI realized it faced a network that operated across jurisdictions and relied on knowledge to choose targets. Whoever coordinated it had access to information, addresses, movements, vulnerabilities, knowledge that suggested internal compromise. Running like a thin silver thread through all these cases was a ghost: Hall, an anonymous digital operator capable of recovering deleted footage, decrypting protected logs, and tracing financial and travel records. Hall's skill set was exceptional, far beyond a curious amateur. They pulled deleted parking garage frames, reconstructed truncated logs, and provided Tanner with transactional trails that led to unexpected phone numbers and shell entities. Their methods raised immediate ethical and operational questions. An outside actor breaching FDI-protected systems could either be a whistleblower with impeccable motives or a manipulator. Hall's packets included recovered CCTV, communications between low-level operatives, and bank transfers that tied otherwise disparate purchases into a coherent trail. Tanner and Skinner debated the reliability of such evidence. Internal protocol frowned upon using illegally obtained material, but the alternative, allowing manipulation to continue unchallenged, felt worse. Hall did more than restore files. They connected Tanner to Agent Catherine Andrews, flagged patterns in fire reports, and mapped coincident FDI operations against subsequent arson and homicide locations. The material Hall provided painted a picture of systematic exploitation. Someone inside the FDI was exposing addresses and operational details to outside actors, who then used that intelligence to commit murder and arson. Despite these contributions, the presence of Hall introduced ambiguity. Were they a conscience within the net, exposing corruption? Or a controlled leak meant to shape investigative attention? Tanner operated in that gray, relying on Hall to follow leads he could not otherwise reach. This partnership was dangerous and indispensable. It would ultimately speed discoveries that saved lives, and also accelerate the deaths of those who tried to follow the trail to its source. Agent Catherine Andrews' work started as a routine arson investigation, but quickly revealed patterns pointing to deliberate, coordinated attacks. Mia Cole's apartment was among the first fires Andrews examined in depth. The scene after the blaze suggested professional accelerant use, burn patterns that moved faster than ordinary fires, multiple points of origin indicating deliberate ignition, and residues that suggested an accelerant. Andrews sent samples to a forensic chemistry lab. The reports were unequivocal: gasoline residue in ash samples, evidence not of accident, but of intentional arson. The case gained urgency when she learned Mia's husband, Sasha Cole, had been missing the day before the fire, a disappearance that preceded destruction by hours. Andrews began mapping fires across the region and then across state lines, plotting a timeline that unnervingly overlapped with FDI operations. Her investigation revealed a pattern. Properties were targeted shortly after the FDI conducted interviews or operations nearby. Apartment buildings, small commercial venues, and even a biological research facility had been destroyed. At first, the targets seemed random. Then the pattern emerged. In multiple instances, the victims or physical evidence that could expose certain activities had been eliminated in the flames. Andrews faced institutional friction. Requesting cross-agency databases and privileged access to restricted logs raised alarms. Nonetheless, she pursued chemical traces, vendor invoices for accelerants, and surveillance to place arsonists at scenes. Her persistence paid off. She identified correlations too specific to dismiss. Someone with access to FDI intelligence was using those details, addresses and schedules, to pick targets and time attacks. The stakes rose when Andrews linked the timing of attacks to specific FDI probes. Each fire appeared aimed at erasing traces that could unite the threads of an operation. Her methodical mapping, a wall full of dates, coordinates, and FDI case numbers, made an ugly hypothesis unavoidable. The source of the leaks was inside the agency.
The biological research facility fire crystallized Andrews' fears. The lab housed sensitive projects and researchers whose work would have attracted scrutiny had details leaked. Dr. Henry Jenkins, mortally injured weeks earlier at the sanctuary, had been scheduled to consult at that facility. Jenkins' pending visit connected his death to a much wider effort to erase evidence. Andrews compiled timelines showing that Jenkins had been in contact with colleagues researching a specialized project. The scheduled lab visit would have exposed anomalies. The arson removed not only buildings, but expertise and documentation. When Andrews began layering incident reports, FDI operational logs, and travel records, she found a repeated sequence. An FDI inquiry, a leak of schedule information, then an arson or murder designed to remove the people or documents best positioned to reveal truth. The logical next step was access to server logs, audit trails, and internal communications. Andrews made a choice she knew carried personal risk. She accessed a restricted server room to trace provenance on flagged communications and to download records that standard channels were either too slow to provide or being obstructed from providing. She did so because time was a factor. More fires and more deaths could follow the longer the leak persisted. Her entry into that secure environment would cost her freedom. She was arrested on espionage charges, convicted, and sentenced to life. But inside that server room, Andrews uncovered crucial files, authenticated access histories that traced sensitive disclosures back to a familiar name at the highest levels of FDI. What she extracted implicated the agency's director. Her sacrifice forced the evidence into the light. Piece by piece, the evidence formed a pattern implicating Director Michael Trench. In his role, he had near total visibility into operations, the ability to classify material, and the authority to route or obscure investigative inquiries. The digital trails Andrews recovered showed his credentials accessing case files and then routing address data outward in ways inconsistent with policy. Trench had everything an opportunist would need: institutional cover, professional respect, and daily visibility into threats to his agenda. Dr. Jenkins had uncovered anomalies related to sensitive research. Ray Wells, it appears, had been working as an informant, gathering specifics that would have revealed transactional links between properties and actors. Each time a potential exposure approached, a controlled clearance was followed by a fatal incident or a fire. The enforcer operating in the field was a different mystery. Investigative threads suggested a professional killer with no official record inside FDI databases, an identity erased or never entered. Documentation hinted at a man sometimes referenced as Jeff Skinner, a figure with familial echoes that rattled investigators because of the name's similarity to Xavier Skinner. Records were heavily redacted where this enforcer appeared, as if someone had scrubbed file indices to keep any trace from surfacing. The result, a professional who could move in plain sight without leaving an official footprint. Trench's motive remains subject to conjecture. Power, influence, and protection of undisclosed interests are the likely drivers. He manipulated data flows and used agency authority to silence threats. The scope of fires, murders, and the desert burials pointed to an architect with both reach and ruthlessness.
The network mapped onto years of decisions that repurposed protective intelligence into targeting intelligence.
The human cost of that repurposing was terrible. A news broadcast building, preparing an expose on unexplained patterns, was among the final targets. When the building burned, 21 people perished. Journalists, producers, and support staff who might have connected the dots publicly. It was chilling evidence of how far the conspiracy had reached. Media, labs, neighborhoods, and individuals who had the temerity to investigate. Evan Tanner, Xavier Skinner, and Barry Walker had each completed separate lines of inquiry that intersected at Trench. Each had pieced together elements that, when combined, exposed the scheme. But each was removed. Tanner's console went dark. Skinner's steady presence was silenced. Walker was taken while trying to secure on-scene evidence. The killings were precise, targeted, and designed to look like tragic but explainable incidents. In reality, they were eliminations calibrated to protect a network. Catherine Andrews survived, but at a devastating price. Her conviction for espionage was an institutional blow, a demonstration of how the machinery of justice could be turned against those who tried to expose corruption when the head of that machinery was compromised. Her imprisonment, however, was not the end of the story. The files she secured contained the smoking gun. Entries tying director Michael Trench to the dissemination of addresses and operational details that preceded arson and murder. The paradox remains bitter. Andrews' life sentence spared her a likely death at the hands of the same forces that killed her colleagues. Her conscience and her actions saved future lives by unmasking the director, even while the system punished her for the method she chose. When the conspiracy collapsed into public view, the shock rippled through the intelligence community and beyond. An agency designed to defend citizens had been compromised from the top. Oversight failures, internal corruption, and the engineering of plausible deniability allowed Director Michael Trench to weaponize FDI capabilities for years. Investigations revealed that safeguards had been circumvented, audit trails altered, access logs falsified, and internal units co-opted to shield illicit flows. The reforms that followed were both immediate and long-term. Enhanced audit mechanisms, mandatory cross-checks for classified access, third-party oversight on certain categories of data, and new protections for whistleblowers. A new FDI operations center was established with transparency measures visible to oversight panels and with technical controls designed to remove single points of power. The Nevada burial ground became a memorial. Rows of markers now stand where the stones once marked anonymous graves. 122 names inscribed, each one a life accounted for and remembered. In quiet ceremonies, families and investigators acknowledge the cost of truth. The names Evan Tanner, Xavier Skinner, and Barry Walker are honored. Their records reopened in the light of what Andrews exposed. And then there is Hall. The hacker who pulled files from the dark helped connect disparate evidence, but Hall's identity remains unresolved. Were they a moral actor forcing truth into view, or a manipulative presence steering inquiries for reasons still unknown? Their actions contributed materially to the discovery of Trench's role. Their fate, whether they vanished into the ether or remain in shadow, is one of the many loose ends demanding attention. We cannot pretend the reforms erase the past. They are cold comfort for families and colleagues who buried loved ones, and for those who were punished or silenced for trying to do what was right. The case demonstrates how institutional power can corrupt, and how courage, sometimes reckless, sometimes sacrificial, can reclaim truth. The Federal Department of Intelligence continues to operate, but under stricter guard and with renewed scrutiny. The lessons from this conspiracy have been applied where possible, though some reforms remain classified for national security reasons. The essential truth, and the reason this story matters, is this: the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, not only against outside threats, but against the rot that can take root inside institutions we trust. This is the story of men and women who followed clues, questioned authority, and paid the highest price. It is also a warning. When authority is unchecked, systems designed to protect can become instruments of destruction. The names you have heard are more than characters in a file.
They were people who chose duty over ease. Remember them. Let their sacrifices remind us of the fragility of institutional trust and the necessity of accountability. If there is a final lesson, it is simple and unforgiving. Systems do not defend themselves. They require people willing to look, to ask, and to hold one another accountable, even when it costs everything.